morning, everyone, and welcome to the session Scaling Up Safer Streets Lessons Learned and the Way Ahead. We'll get started with a very special warm welcome from Dhawal Asher. He's head of the Integrated Transport Team at WRI India. Over to you, Dhawal.
First of all, a very warm welcome to all of you again at Connect Karo. We're doing this in person after 3 years. So it's really heartwarming to see so many of you sort of come here. So welcome. Then thank you for coming for our session. This is one of the 6 parallel sessions going on. So I feel very sort of happy that to see so many of you here. Also, hope that we can make this a useful conversation and a conversation that we all can participate in. So I will not take much time. I just wanted to set some context before my colleague sets up more context. Just at the opening session, for any of you who was there, Mr. Amitabh Kant also very clearly spoke about, that his idea of cities, and it's not just him, it's so many of us, are walkable, sort of people friendly. So the whole pyramid that most of us seek, right, is prioritize walk, cycle, public transport, and eventually just as a last resort, the car. The session is named Scaling Up Safer Streets. We're in 2023. I think a big question upon us, and fair few of us will agree that back in 2006, the first time these words, at least as far as I remember, was spoken of, having to focus on moving people instead of having to move cars. We're talking 2006. Since then, we've mastered the language. We're speaking all the right things. The question is it translating into the right things? Is it as easy to translate by merely just drawing lines, which is, I would say, a civil engineering exercise, or does it need more? Does it need more thinking? Does it need more nuance, more sort of complexities to be addressed? But I think this is a decade sort of that is very crucial. The one thing that our last decade told us, or one of our learnings, was that pilots weren't really scaling as much. Raahgiri happened and scaled. It happened sort of how much transformation, or many of the other sort of us working on those pilots, which means that in this decade we probably need a sort of framework that doesn't only go from pilot to scale in a future that we don't know when it will come. How do we rethink this? How do we make transformational change on our city streets, which when you see, it's the easiest to do, but it's the hardest to achieve. So hopefully this is sort of, there's a lot of conversation around this. A lot of us are always engaged. We're just hoping that this conversation adds to that discourse. With that, I will call upon Akanksha to make a quick presentation on some of the context, which I'm sure most of us know, but perhaps looking at the slide will help.
A very warm welcome to you all. Let's begin by looking at the mode share in our metro cities. This is no new information. A lot of us have already seen this, but just treat this as a sort of refresher for today. So a closer look will suggest that a high percentage of people in our metro cities are either traveling by foot or are cycling. And not just metro cities, even if we look at the tier 2 and tier 3 cities, a lot of people there are also cycling and walking. So clearly evidence is suggesting that a high percentage of people in India, they're commuting either by walking and cycling. However, simultaneously what has also happened is that our cities have seen an unprecedented growth in the vehicular population. In just the last 10 years, the vehicles in India have almost doubled in number. And this demand in the increase in number of vehicles, how have we addressed this in our cities, is one by either building high capacity infra, which is freeways, expressways and flyovers, or we have looked at mass transit solutions like the metro rail or the bus system. However, what is missed in all of this is the details. And this is what missing details looks like on street. Here is an example from Bangalore, but I'm sure anyone can relate this to any other city where you are also from. A herd of people can be seen who are trying to cross the road. So pedestrians each day have to risk their lives to just be on the streets. And this is just an example of how details are missed. There is no pedestrian crossing, there's no safe space for people to wait and cross while the signal goes to the other cycle. Again, we've provided crossings but which are leading to walled refuge islands, walled islands. And just so consider the plight of the people who are not fully abled or who have some physical disabilities. We've provided footpaths, but to what? They are not, sometimes not continuous. Even if they are provided, the maintenance is a big question with the footpaths all the time. So somewhere we'll see very high curbs, which are obstructed by either some trees, utilities. These are just common sight, a few pictures from all cities, but I'm sure very very common in every other city and every other street in India. Now, what does all of this mean? What does all of this indicate? The quality of pedestrian infrastructure that is being present on our streets. That we have a very poor quality of urban life, where people each day, just to be on the streets, are risking their lives. There is a new climate economy India report from 2018, which a few key findings from that. And one of the findings, it suggests that cities where the quality of life deteriorated, there the economic growth has also slowed down. And just this is a World Bank study which says that road crashes are estimated to cost the Indian economy 3 to 5% GDP a year. But above all of this, above the economy, above everything else, it is the tragic loss of human life. Just in the last decade, 1.3 million people have been killed, and over 5 million people have been injured due to road crashes in India. Hence, we must understand, we already know this, but I think we need to keep repeating to ourselves and keep making others also aware that streets are not just an engineering problem. It's not just about providing a carriageway where the thoroughfare motor vehicle traffic can move, or we provide a footpath where pedestrians can move. It has many many users and many many uses. So streets cannot be just looked as an engineering problem or a solution. They cannot be just designed as conduits for traffic, rather as quintessential public spaces where walking, cycling, and public transport is given a fair share of road space, and where walking is enjoyable, cycling is convenient, it is safe for women, children, and elderly. The streets are accessible to all, and people can spend quality time. So it's not like, after saying all of this, that nothing has been done in our cities. Several efforts have been taken at the national level, at the state level, and the city level. And some of our Indian cities have seen very good street transformations also. JM Road in Pune, Tendershore in Bangalore, or CG Road in Ahmedabad, AJLR Mumbai. We've also, in Delhi itself, we've looked at Chandni Chowk getting pedestrianized. We've looked at the transformation of Delhi Gate intersection, which has now been transformed to make it safer for all users, including vehicles and pedestrians. We've seen cycle tracks coming up in Bangalore. And not just on ground transformations, right? We've also made efforts to mobilize the whole community to scale up these transformations to a city level, to a state level, to a national level. We've had competitions and challenges like the Streets for People, the Nurturing Neighborhoods, the India Cycles for Change, the Mumbai Street Lab. We've also looked at the possibility of exploring network plans at neighborhood level, at city level. We've looked at intervening through policies and guidelines. And constantly, the people who are working in this space are right into the advocacy business also, who are doing campaigns and open street events, who are doing capacity building sessions, to really build the capacity of the officials also, to help them scale these transformations at city level. But after all of this also, what is translated into ground, that is a long way to go in our Indian cities. What is implemented on ground, it's still a very small fraction, a very small portion. So the question really is it even possible to scale this, to scale such street transformation across the nation, across the cities? And how do we really move beyond pilots? So I'll end my presentation with this question, that from pilot to scale, what is the way ahead for us? Thank you. I'll now invite Tanushri back on the podium.
Thank you so much, Akanksha, for the valuable presentation. Moving forward, let's take a moment today to celebrate the Raahgiri movement. It is 2023, and we are celebrating 10 years of the Raahgiri movement, which almost started a revolution for building safer streets in our cities. Today, we have the privilege of hearing from Mrs. Sarika Panda Bhatt. She's the director at Nagaro and founding trustee of the Raahgiri Foundation. She will enlighten us on the 10-year journey today. Over to you, Sarika.
Good morning, everyone. It's delighted to have full house for discussing streets today. Generally, I thought that we will have only few people because it is no more of interest on the climate change or achieving SDGs goal, because I think we have moved forward from streets to multiple other things. But I must say that, if you are not fixing our streets, we'll not able to fix anything related to climate change. That's for sure. Because we are talking about mobility for climate change, we are talking about urban flooding for climate change, we are talking about plantation for climate change. And the most important space that we have to address these three things is the streets, the way we are designing and developing. So, how a small experiment in Gurgaon, we started with few like-minded people with support from government and civic society group, become a national movement. And after Raahgiri, we have seen many cities by themselves, started doing similar kind of events, or I must say, I will not say it, event campaign to talk about streets, to reclaim the streets. It's not just Raahgiri, but multiple things. So started in Gurgaon in 2013, and I still remember, and I get goosebumps for first Raahgiri. Me and one of my co-founder Prabhat, we were coming from Gurgaon to CP for a meeting to discuss about Raahgiri, and we were in metro, and we get down at Rajiv Chowk metro station, and we say, if have people like this at Rajiv Chowk, that you have seen Rajiv Chowk metro station, right? So if we can get so many people in our street walking, cycling, then we will say that, oh, Raahgiri Day is success. And we went back and we discussed this, and many people said, if we get to 2,000 people, then also we will celebrate that we got 2,000 people of Gurgaon on road to walk and cycle to reclaim the street. And believe me, we got more than 10,000 people first Sunday of Raahgiri Day, when we started in one of the CBD of Gurgaon, which is almost city center of Gurgaon near Galleria. And we were like, wow, because this was the first test. Maybe we even didn't know how it will go, who will be the partner, who all will be coming, what all we will doing. We were clueless when we started it. But it was a great achievement. But okay, that's Gurgaon. And we were doing in and around Gurgaon, but it scaled up and become national campaign when it started in CP. When we reclaimed the street of CP, and when it became a national news, then we received so many requests from multiple cities to organize Raahgiri Day. So this is how, everybody plays a role. When we talk about positivity, when we talk about impact, when we talk about changes. So everybody plays so crucial role. I always say Raahgiri Day is not that five of us started, but it is because of the people, because of media, because of government become a national level campaign. So almost 80 cities now organize Raahgiri Day, 18 states, and more than 3,000 the event, Sunday Car-Free Days has been organized already. And, billions of people have already attended Raahgiri Day. These are few glimpses from the first Raahgiri Day. Raahgiri Day stopped in between for a year. But again, people demanded, they demanded that they want Raahgiri Day back. For many people, it was a socializing event. But, and for many people, we always heard, oh, what is happening, dance, this, that. But, it become, as, in last presentation, we said street is not just engineering, right? It is for socializing. It is for, all the road users, it is for street vendors. This is how you create street. It is not just engineering. So we try to showcase that. Of course, the exercise, the Zumba, the dance, everything is part of it to attract audience. And we used to get that captive audience to share our knowledge. Why we need this kind of street? Why you are so happy in such streets, and why you scream every Monday morning that there is a traffic jam, and you go to the social media and tweet about it, and why you are not so angry at Raahgiri Day. So these are the things that we try to get audience for. And even for police, when they used to get, organize this road safety campaigns or some awareness campaign like that, they hardly used to get 50, 100 captive people where they can actually showcase their work or try to create awareness about road safety. But Raahgiri Day given them this platform to actually talk about road safety. So multiple things, multiple challenges, and then we keep continuing Raahgiri Day in multiple cities, and in Gurgaon especially we keep on doing it. So why? What was the mission of, when we started Raahgiri Day? Basically, again, talking about streets for all. So when we started, when we went to the government and said that we want to, cordon off this stretch of road and all that, oh, who walks and cycles in Gurgaon? If you give them opportunity, everybody will take their car to their bedroom. This was the answer. And we said, give us one chance. And we need to demonstrate this, that people in Gurgaon also like to walk, like to cycle, if you given them the opportunity, given them the safe infrastructure. That was one of our mission. Then behavioral change, as I said, that for everyone, for government departments, for society, civic society group, for education institutions, for citizens, we got a chance to actually walk the talk through this. So changing the behavior, we not greatly, but we can see the change that people stop before zebra crossing sometimes, who were actually using that road during Raahgiri Day. Advocating capacity building through this. Of course, designing and execution was become the next stage. Okay, we did so many Raahgiri, what next? So let's work on making 24/7 Raahgiri streets, and then engaging bottom up from civic society group to the multiple agency. Again, these are the four things why we need Raahgiri Day. Vibrant street, we talk about, already discussed. Most of the government school children's walk or cycle to school. What about them? Because see, pedestrian cyclists don't create traffic jams, so they are invisible road users. So we need to understand that 48% women, either for socializing or dropping their kids to school or for livelihood, they walk. So it's important to address their things also. So that's why vibrant street is important, where women and children feel safe. Accessible mobility, again, 3% Indians drive car to work. And what we saw in the presentation, that the whole focus is on building more roads. Question is why? And I am asking it to everyone because I still don't get an answer why. Again, 1/3 of our public transport passengers, the movement is by public transport, especially by buses. So that has gone. And that's actually when, the way we're designing our street, not addressing that issue. And of course, then how women are using public transport. Inclusive spaces. As per global norms, per capita, we should have 20 square meter of public space. In Mumbai, we have 1.28. In Chennai, we have, 0.81. And in Bangalore, we have just 2 square kilometer per capita. Even I don't know the data for Gurgaon. I think in Gurgaon, we consider malls and all that is a public space. Quickly, many forms we did, night Raahgiri, multiple things, demonstrating real world situation, addressing women's issue, night Raahgiri, etc., etc. Quickly, I just want to upgrade that, through Raahgiri, multiple cities started street design, public bicycle sharing, also the Vision Zero work. We can see that, how streets are getting transformed in a very minimalistic way, which is sustainable, using reuse materials, etc., etc., developing street in very sustainable way. Lot of intersections improvement. And these are few impacts from Raahgiri onwards is like the great impact of Haryana Vision Zero. We were able to save 1,500 lives in 2 years of our work. Similarly, in Gurgaon, Mr. Singhal is here with whom we are closely working, and we were able to reduce almost 13% of pedestrian death last year through the intervention of redesigning streets and intersections. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sarika, for sharing an inspiring journey. I'm I'm happy that in a small way all of us here have contributed to this large movement, and we are celebrating 10 years of this, which is quite an achievement. So a big round of applause for the Raahgiri Day, really. We now move on to the highly anticipated panel discussion. Today, we have the privilege of hearing from a distinguished panel of experts who will offer their insights into the complexities and challenges of building safer streets. I would now request our guests to join us on stage. Srimati Shashanka Ala, IAS, Special Secretary, Public Works Department, Delhi. Please do give our guests a big round of applause. Shri Shehzad Alam, IAS, Special Commissioner, Road Safety, Transport Department, Delhi. Colonel R.D. Singhal, General Manager, Mobility, Gurugram Development Authority. Srimati Hemalata K, Superintending Engineer, Bruhat Bengaluru Mahanagara Palike. She's come all the way from Bangalore for this session. We should really applaud her. Srimati Pranjali Deshpande, Sustainable Mobility Professional and an expert in this area. I would also like to call Advait Jani, who is going to be moderating this session from WRI India. Over to you, Advait.
Good morning, everyone. First of all, thank you, Akansha and Sarika, for those presentations. I think you've very well set the context for this discussion today. I think streets are something that all of us are associated with one way or the other, no matter what your profession is or what your background is. We are going to use streets, and we are directly affected or even indirectly affected by the way our streets have been designed or engineered. I think our records talk for themselves, especially our road safety record. But all is not that bleak. I think a lot of cities are stepping up now, especially with the whole sustainable goals coming up. Road safety being forefront of discussions, multiple forums. And the city, the representatives from the cities that you see here have also contributed in a big way. A lot of pilots have been done. Delhi has also done it. What next, and how do we go about it at a much larger scale in terms of the next decade that we see?
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'll just like to introduce myself. I'm Shashanka. I am with the Public Works Department. So I have jotted down something, so I will somehow try to fit this into my reply, no matter what he's going to ask me. Okay. So quickly, I thought I'll just set the perspective because I'm the first speaker for this panel. Let's quickly differentiate between streets and roads. And let's not confuse between the both. I'm sure my definition is also not right, but just let's start to assume a few things. Where do we have roads and where do we have streets? What all do we need on streets and what all do we need on roads? And we must also accept that that both the requirements will be different. So roads are where you are connecting. Basically, streets are where you're connecting residences mostly, because there will be people walking in and out of those places, and they will need what we are calling the complete streets. So that we all agree. Roads, I'd like to just, maybe contrary to the view of this room, will be a little different, where we will say that they will move from point to point in terms of work, in terms of need or necessity, but they will not necessarily be using those spaces for, let's say, sitting around or just jollily walking around or drawing or painting on the roads. Okay, so these two things I just wanted to set the perspective with. And we've done a few pilots. I'd had the privilege of working with WRI before also. Pilots, as long as they are with design, with the orientation of design. So what do we need for like complete streets or complete roads? One, the will that we need to make them complete. because I think for a long time, for the last few years, we did not even come to that conclusion that we need roads for just more than vehicles. So that we are sort of moved ahead. Next is design. So in pilots, what we see is a lot of energy, lot of time goes into designing these streets. Like the one that was being showed, where the pedestrian is hitting a roadblock, or there are no frequent pedestrian paths, things like that, which could be used in design. And this design, only when it is incorporated at the planning level. And fortunately or unfortunately, streets and roads are done by the government, they're not done privately. So each time you make a road or a street and then you want to convert it, change it later on, it will cost a lot of money, finances, which is not easily sought from the government. So basically, that design practices, whatever we've learned, for which all of you would have spent a lot of time, should be incorporated at the level of initialization of the project, failing which it gets very difficult for implementation. Then third and fourth is obviously implementation and enforcement. Now, these pilots start off very well because it is completely focused on design. Design is something which is in our hands, so we will cordon off the area when we will say that here there'll be a pedestrian seat, there'll be a place to sit, be a place to walk, vehicles will not be parked here, the vehicles will be moving in this direction, all that. We figure that in design. But then when it comes to maintenance, agencies like yourself will also sort of move out, and then we again come back to where we were before this had started. So that again goes in a vicious cycle. So ideally, I think for pilots to be large scaled, the best way is to have all these designs in the implementation before we start the implementation, and also take a small division between, is it only purely aesthetic, like just do we want to beautify our streets, or do we want to make them functional? Like if there's no place to walk, then it's not at all functional. So if these things are going to become a part of our design, which we are also trying with WRI and other agencies, where we have told our engineers also to sit with them. Even transport department was with us, where we will sit before we do these crossroads or these new roads, and use those designs, make it like a compulsory design feature in our roads henceforth, and so that pilots will not remain just as pilots.
Thank you, ma'am. But I think what you've done is you also set the context for the next question for Shehzad Alam sir. I think we have been working quite a bit together on the road safety issue. Streets and road safety are both linked, right? You have good streets, you automatically have a good road safety record also. But obviously, when it comes to the visioning, the principles, the planning of it, there are multiple conflicts because there are multiple stakeholders and there should be conflicts. Otherwise, there's no case of dialogue possible in terms of how a street should be designed. Sir, my question to you is, how do we, how do you see this? How do we navigate through these multiple visions or approaches towards how our streets / roads or road safety should be approached?
Regarding this challenge of interdepartmental coordination, what I see is that each department is regulated by its own act. Suppose there is a Motor Vehicle Act which has its enabling provision related to road safety, and that is the mandate of, suppose, Transport Department. But same manner, the development of streets and means developing infrastructure is looked after by the MCD, and MCD is regulated by its own act, MCD Act. And in the same manner, each department is regulated and work under the provision and regulations of their act. Where I see the biggest silos, the reason because the silos gets created is because this legislative framework does not envisages a coordination. The acts which has been designed, or the acts which have been enabled, has not incorporated this vision of coordination. And from where the coordination comes, like, so suppose in road safety, then Supreme Court has to intervene, and then there is a Supreme Court road safety committee, and then they have designed this road safety lead agency at the state level and district road safety committee at the district level. So what happening is that someone has to intervene. But when the Supreme Court is also intervening, so we all know means the District Road Safety Committee is not as effective as it should be. And that is because the different department which sit in the District Road Safety Committee, that is the like MCD, PWD, education, transport, headed by the district magistrate concerned, each department is within their own domain of act on which on the basis of which they have to work. Many a times it will depends on the officer, that how much hard and the soft boundary he wants to create around himself, how much coordination he will allow. And for that, the what we can do, the first, if we want to have a very effective this kind of coordination and interdepartmental silos barrier, this barrier breaking of barrier, it has to be enabled through the legislative framework, but that is slightly far fetched. So what we can do at means the level of officers is that continuous meetings, coordination, and this kind of dialogues, which will create an environment to work together and then to achieve a common goal, given the fact that yes, we are all working within our own domain. So this is what I believe is the main reason of the silos in the department, and the same comes with the when it comes to road safety, because road safety has been only talked in this motor vehicle act. No other act like MCD act there is no reference of road safety, and the same goes with the other acts also. So when it comes to encroachment removal, which is like suppose MCD or if the revenue department has to do, never ever it has been done from the perspective of road safety. Encroachment removal has been done, but not from the perspective of road safety. So this is the legislative in coordination, which I may say, is the main reason for the departmental silos. And if we want to make it robust, then we need to bring this coordination into the legislative framework. So that is the main reason.
This is an issue that's going to be much long term, that needs to be worked out. But at least the good thing is that we all seem to be on the right direction towards working in terms of saving lives. I would like to go to my next panelist, Singhal sir. I think we are here. I think one is, of course, we are here to celebrate 10 years of open streets. And in a way, Gurgaon and the state of Haryana have shown the way when it comes to celebrating Raahgiri Day. As Sarika's map clearly showed the kind of density of Raahgiri days that were happening in Haryana versus the rest of the country or other states, it was very obvious that Haryana has embraced this, not only just as a pilot project, but seems to have institutionalized it. So, what has been the success, especially in GMDA? How is that GMDA seems to be on board, and other cities in Haryana have taken this up and constantly do it on a regular basis?
Gurgaon is a unique city. 3 decades back, population was only 2.4 lakh. Now it is about 25 lakh, and we expecting population of Gurgaon in 2031 42 lakhs. Now our jurisdiction or the influence area of Gurgaon was only 50 square kilometer in 1992. Now it is 600 square kilometer. So it has grown exponentially, though, and we also call it a millennium city. It has got its own problem, unique culture, and maintaining mobility of this type of city is really a problem. However, like we have heard that Sarika ma'am, that Raahgiri started in Gurgaon only 2014, and they have been able to bring in the minds of the people the roads are for people, not for car only. This, until unless this psyche of the people changes, we will not be able to bring about the changes at ground. Though planning, we can plan anything, but it has to be implemented with the community participation. And we have got for Gurgaon comprehensive mobility management plan designed by School of Planning, Delhi. And like we have planned that by 2031, we will be able to construct 800 kilometer of footpaths. Similarly, we have got our planning for cycle tracks, and this year 34 kilometer of footpath is being constructed, and we have planned for 64 kilometer more for this year only. So we plan we should be able to achieve our target by 2031, 800 kilometer of cycle track in the city. That is our plan. And of course, there are bottlenecks, there are problems, and there is a psyche of the people also. And because like you see Delhi Gurgaon expressway, it is called expressway, but once you drive you may find three-wheeler chota hathi also, you find four-wheeler some 407 also moving along you. So design speed is 120 kilometer. Similarly within city, that police will come, they will clear the pedestrian footpaths, and after some times, after 2 hours, the same vendors will sit back. So there are socio-economic problem also. So really, but still we are doing our best, and with the help of community participation, the changes will be at the ground.
Community participation is crucial for pretty much any project. Any little resistance, sometimes there is the whole issue of a vocal minorities taking over the whole agenda, because the silent majority doesn't speak up. And that's why it's important, I think, the governments also step up and help the silent majority be heard, and make sure that the agenda is pushed towards a more sustainable goal. So I think Raahgiri definitely is a big push for that. Another thing, I guess, we are also celebrating here today is also not many people know, but it's also been almost 10 years of Tender Sure guidelines. It has been a game changer for Bangalore. I'm personally a big fan of Tender Sure guidelines and the work that has been carried out in Bangalore with this. Ma'am, you have done quite a bit on streets, junctions, and I'm quite sure you would have also seen and worked on the Tender Sure projects itself. The promise for Tender Sure was that it will change the way we look at our streets. There won't be required any more requirement of digging of streets for next 30 years. It's been almost close to now 2015 was the first street was inaugurated. How has the story been, ma'am, in terms of the scale up and in terms of the operations and maintenance of Tender Sure?
We are mainly focusing on the proper carriageway, as well as focusing on all the kinds of people. So Tender Sure Road is the one of the first initiative of the country to make the roads more safer for the not only for the vehicles but also for the pedestrian. So the big challenge was the moving of the utilities. So in the Tender Shore roads, we have made the uniform carriageway for the vehicles, as well as we have given the proper space for the pedestrian as well as the NMTs. So the biggest challenge is like we have know that shifting of the utilities. Uh, Wherever we maintain the road, it comes with wherever we build the road, we develop a road, the maintenance is the issue, because as we are talking about the coordination of the other agencies. So we are all giving the services to the people, but a lot of issues with their own legislative whatever it is. So we do the roads, and some other agency comes and dug up the road for the laying of the water lines or sewages. So in order to avoid this, we come up with the Tender Sure roads, and now it is almost 6-7 years yeah, it's been developed. So it has given a other state for the entire city, I can say. We have started with some few roads. Now we are planning to take it up even more roads in future. We have shifted the utilities underground, and we have laid all the utilities newly. Even it is from the other departments like water, sewerage, or the OFC or the BSNL lines. We have made separate conduits and separate utilities to lay out. So there is no digging of the roads that is happening. And some of the challenges were these are not only it's a road with all the properties and the residential and the commercial properties which is there, and keeping the live line alive and to lay the new line was a challenge. And the process is not a cakewalk. It's a little bit complicated because of the giving the access to the public as well properties, and keeping the live alive, the lines alive. So now, so only it takes little time rather than the other formation of roads. Maybe the by bituminous road or the asphalt roads can be made quickly, but for the tender shore roads, because we are shifting the entire utilities, bringing the entire utilities on the sides of the carriageway, and ensuring there is no pipes, and we are keeping the cross ducts inside, so that there is no taking of the roads in future. So once we have laid, see, this is my 7 years, and we have not seen any digging of the roads, of any digging in those roads. Maybe some any because all the lanes except the KPTCL lines, the power lines, all the other lanes has been newly laid. So there is no demand for any other agencies to come and dig up. So that is one aspect. And also maintenance, since the stormwater drains has been also been laid here, the surface runoff due to the climatic change what we experienced last year is full of rain. So the surface runoff was well taken into the stormwater drains, and there was no silt up also. There was no silting in the pipes what we have laid. So there is no choking that has happened. Even the entire city, wherever, because last year actually we would have seen there was a lot of flooding in Bangalore because of heavy rains. But in these tender shore roads, there was no flooding that has happened. That is the one things what we have observed. So moving forward, along with the tender shore, we are doing the white topping roads to become pothole free. So this year we have earmarked around another 800 crores for 100 kilometers of roads to be laid. Initially, maybe we feel that cost is a little higher, but it's a maintenance free of roads. So it not only give the uniform carriageway for the vehicles, we are also made the footpath wider so that pedestrians can easily walk away. So we have seen the network, like many of the people started walking on the streets. So there's a connectivity from each streets, and the people walks in these roads. So mainly we concentrate on the CBD area, so that it has been already grown. Like there is no further expansion of the city. So we start with CBD area, so that there is no development that happens. Thank you, sir.
One of the big changes that tender shares brought about the fact is that whenever there's repairs, I still know I can walk from point A to point B without getting onto the carriageway and risking my life, because everything underground has been thought through. All right, Pranjali. So you've been started as a consultant, then you got into a think tank, and now you're with the cities. So you've seen sort of, you're like a jack of all trades here. How do you see this pilot projects, getting into a much sort of an industrial scale, let's say, of development, and where are the challenges we can sort of foresee from now on?
Thanks. So I think moving from pilots to scale up, I think it's becoming very comparatively easy for the cities like maybe Bangalore, Pune, or Delhi. But if we take examples of mid-sized cities, like for example, I'm working in Dehradun. So for them, I think they are still in very early stages of understanding what is complete streets, what are safe streets, etc. So for example, we recently did one street near the school area, so it's safe schools projects under the cities. And actually, the first thing people notice was now it is looking clean. Okay, now it is looking beautiful. And when we were talking to the stakeholders, and then I again and again asked them, like, what else, and then finally she said, yeah, now I can walk easily from one junction to my school. Then I said, yes, that's what we are doing. Actually, it's functionality, like she pointed out in the beginning. I think rather than beautification, functionality is the first thing we need to bring in. So I think this definition, or this the formula from pilot to scale up will change from city to city, or maybe at least between the smaller cities and bigger cities. For big cities, I think now it's time to move maybe one step ahead. and start thinking about making it statutory, because our development plans are still talking about just like land uses and road widening, but they don't talk about NMT network, they don't talk about public transport network. So why can't we put them in the development plan itself, so that these legislative questions, or maybe it will be a great tool for the city also to implement wider footpaths, or if city is not doing it, people will be able to ask them, why are you not doing it, if it's there in the DP. So like in Pune's bicycle plan, the first thing like that came out of the discussion was it has to be in the development plan. But that process started long back in, I think, 2017, 2018. It's still not over. So it's still not statutory. And that is becoming a big challenge for us to push for, making cycle tracks on certain street, or making even cycle lanes, painted cycle lanes on certain streets. So I think for big cities, the answer will be from pilots to scale up. Now they have to think about making it statutory. They know all this language of moving, streets are for people and not vehicles. All engineers know it. So now it's like one step next for them. And for maybe mid-sized cities, I think it's still basics, understanding the basics, not just for the engineers, or not just for the government, but also making them understand easily for the people, for the stakeholders as well. So I think there it will be still a challenge. But for mid-sized cities, I should also point out that if we compare with them, such large cities, they don't even have, I mean, road department is a very infrastructure oriented term. I would say they should have mobility department, because there is no one to take care of mobility aspects. Half of the streets are with the state highways, national highways, some are with the PWD. When they have to do any street, they call PWD engineer and they don't know what to do. So I think for them, they will still have to start from the basics of creating mobility department, which will think about this planning, street designing, and how to implement it, conduct stakeholder consultations, etc., and then maybe starting a pilot and then moving to the bigger network. Thanks.
If cities have to do it, they have to also have a robust, a strong system of consultants, because consultants are going to be necessary. Urban designers, planners, engineers, highway engineers, you name it. There's a long list of professionals that can make a complete street. We have quite a few of consultants here in the group. We have quite a few people from think tanks, from NGOs. I just want to get some opinions from them too. So I'll just open the stage for the consultants here, for the think tanks. Couple of minutes, couple of people. Yes, sir. You can go first.
My name is Minesh Parikh, and I'm running a professional firm called NMP Design, which has recently completed. We were appointed to do 100 kilometers of streetscape for the Delhi government with the PWD, and we have completed 2 pilot projects, Majlis Park and Surajmal Vihar. So those were done in close coordination with WRI, and we are doing another about 100 kilometers in Gurgaon, where GMDA is one of the stakeholders. Now, it took us, I'm also a professor of landscape architecture at SPA Delhi. So it took us a lot of hard work to put together a team which has landscape architects, urban designers, transport planners, everybody together, and deliver a lot of these projects. So I have a few questions for Gurgaon especially. Gurgaon is dependent largely on CSR funds and the work like Sarika ma'am is doing to bring safer streets to people. So why is the richest municipality in India shying away from taking head on the responsibility of transforming the streets? Why are you only doing 40 kilometers of cycle track in a year when you are building crores of square foot of FAR every year? Why is such a pittance for the pedestrian? I mean, it's time that our municipal bodies, take the responsibility and start spending funds on this rather than is the richest municipality.
New Gurgaon is different, old Gurgaon is different. like Chandni Chowk is different and where we are sitting is different. If you start comparing कि चांदनी चौक में हमारा फुट ट्रैक क्यों नहीं बन रहा, साइकिल ट्रैक क्यों नहीं बन रहा, it is very very difficult. There are so many factors. The footpath, though legally that is our right of way, you can say this is our land, this is municipal land, but somebody sitting there since last 20 years, 30 years, it is not. So sometimes we plan that suppose this is a model road we will be constructing, so we are not able to get the encroachments cleared, and you will be surprised, there will be stay, there will be court cases. As a citizen, I am also a citizen, we would like to do lot of things, but on ground it is very very difficult. Designing a new street, new road, a new footpath is very very easy. So
Sir,
many.
you just mentioned that Gurgaon went from 50 square kilometers to 600 square kilometers in a space of so many years. So that all that land was not encroached; it was free land.
New Gurgaons, there is no problem. All the new roads which are coming up, we have got a right of way designed by School of Planning, and it has got cycle track, it has got foot track, it has got that drain, it has got that median, everything, all the parameters like utility duct also we are planning side by side. So there will be no digging. Like ma'am brought out, utility ducts are is part of the project.
Sir, I
But
fully trust you what you are
Yeah.
saying, but internet was flooded with the images of a flooded Gurgaon, and still you can't find any walkable street in Gurgaon even
nahi,
today.
that's why I am telling
So
you. Just I
okay.
will reply the flooding because it is very very important.
Absolutely.
Every citizen should know that Gurgaon is one side is the Aravali's, other side is the Nazafgarh drain. All the water of Gurgaon enters into Nazafgarh drain. Nazafgarh drains enter into Yamuna. Aravali Hills, like Sector 56, that level, reduced level. I am engineer also, by the way, and the reduced level of Badshapur drain. Difference is 101 meter. 101 meter within 30 kilometer or 20 kilometer. So water, when there is a range, it rushes towards the Badshapur drain. Badshapur drain has to connect the Nazafgarh drain, and Nazafgarh drain level after the fleshy that rains is higher than the Badshapur drain. Water backflows. And Nazafgarh drain, I will not, because I will be very very inappropriate, because officers of Delhi are sitting. If I say Nazafgarh drain is not desilted, it will take 7 years. If you start desilting now or Nazafgarh drain, that lakhs and lakhs, millions of lakhs of cubic meter of that muck is lying there. So water does not flow to the Yamuna also. There is ill-built problem. So everyone, I am also citizen. When I came to Gurgaon for 2 years, I was sitting in a car because the road was flooded and that there was no movement. I visited the first time I came to Gurgaon in 2012. I was sitting for 2 years. I was cursing, and now I am part of the person. Now you are asking me the question, but
Well,
there is a problem, and that you will suggest you can make a lake, you can dig a canal and go to Mewat and know where water is.
okay, I
So
have a
the
question for
I think
Shashanka ma'am.
Then there will
yeah.
be a financial
No,
problem.
no.
I will ask the ma'am budget.
So anyway, in the interest of time, because I think the
Yeah.
idea here is this conversation is not going to end here for sure,
Absolutely.
but time definitely has to end. So we have our last sort of 10 minutes left. Yeah, he mentioned it. I think he's
After 1 year, you will come, sir. My work is held up. Please get the encroachment removed.
I have
You
one
will come
small
after
question for Shashanka
Yeah.
ma'am.
No,
if
no,
you
no.
will
You will
permit.
come
So
after.
we will keep one, maybe let's see, we'll have one more round of questions because
Yeah.
anyway we have a last 10 minutes left. So post that, if there is time, please feel to ask.
Sure, sure.
But I think this is just a common question for everyone. People are dying on a daily basis, 150,000 plus, all the records everyone knows. In 2 minutes, at least, what would be your idea on how do we stop this? How do we stop it, or how do we reduce it drastically? Because we have also promised that we will bring down road crashes or fatalities by 50%. Of course, it's a long shot, but what would be your take on it? So I'll start maybe with Pranjali first, and then go this way.
Okay.
I think the approach that all cities are now taking is like complete streets, and rather than, I mean, we should just forget this word of beautification. Just push for safe streets all the time. And I mean, of course, edge to edge development is one part of it, but also traffic calming elements. Those are also very effective in many areas, many streets. It's not like, I'm not talking about just putting a speed limit board somewhere or just putting a speed bump, but there are many more techniques of traffic calming. So those should be also used by the authorities while they are talking about safe streets. And I think if we can design our street for a small kid and elderly person and a woman, I think we will, I mean, it will be always effective and very useful for other road users as well. So I think safe streets, we should just call it as safe street, and not, we should just forget the word beautification. That's what I would say.
I think we need both our urban local body as well as the traffic department has to pitch in, and we need to check like why the accidents are happening, what are the main causes for it, and mainly the speed, limiting the speed of the vehicle. That are the some of the things that has to be that can be taken care. But the as we told, making the space for everyone, maybe the for the pedestrian as well as NMT or the vehicles, that also brings some calming of the vehicular traffic, as well as junction improvements wherever we are finding the congestion of traffic. We need to intervene with the bottleneck clearing, so that and safe pedestrian crossing is also most important. And sometimes we are having the zebra crossing for the pedestrian, but we don't have the street traffic lights for the ensure them to safe crossly. So those things also has to be addressed, and moreover, the awareness has to be given for the all the sectors. It may be the user or the implementation or the policy maker. The awareness has to be given properly, so that because we tend to we build to congest traffic or to eliminate the accidents. We usually build the underpasses or the flyovers, sorry, the foot-over bridge, but that increase the walking space for the public. That usually they don't take the foot-over bridge, but we feel that are safer for the pedestrian for them to cross over. Those things has to be kept in mind. We can't just increase their walkability distance by making those things. Instead of that, we can give the junctions can be improved by making the proper traffic signages.
Road safety has got three elements: engineering, enforcement, and education. As far as enforcement is concerned, last year we had only 500 challans per day. Now in Gurgaon automatic challaning system, we have got 5,000 challan per day per population of 25 lakh. It is 6 times more than the Chandigarh. So we are trying. There is no family which has got the challan. I got two, by the way, myself. And as far as engineering is concerned, like slip road, speed calming measures, junction improvement, we are taking one by one. Like this year, we have done 4 junctions improvement, and we have now identifying black spots also. And a lot of improvement has been done. In fact, Sarika ma'am is advising us that for that black spots we have identified and rectified. And the data says in last 3 years, fatality rates have come down 20% down in Gurgaon. I'm only talking about the Gurgaon metropolitan area. As for education, like Raahgiri is part of that, and we are doing this seminar, public awareness, that those things are going on. Though we are very hopeful that behavioral change of community again, it has to be there. Otherwise, we'll not be able to. Only road safety by enforcement or by engineering only, we will not be able to achieve.
Today, the highway design, this detail, the quality design is not coming up. Both state highway or national highway or highway, the design, the detailing in the design, we just make layout. What is the height of the footpath? It is user friendly. This detailing is not coming up. So my suggestion to the PWD, because you are the secretary PWD, the procurement of the consultancy shall be any consultancy for any infrastructure, the maximum 5% only, whether in the design or the supervision. So the consultancy shall, the procurement shall be quality based, so that they can ensure the optimum construction through the contractor. So I really appreciate. And on the other hand, WR, you have NGOs. You have a good advocacy to the political level also. Once you, I think you have to advocate, you know, policy level, you have to advocate. Look, the consultant, you need a consultant quality, so the quality prepared, so that we can have preservation of the asset also. Otherwise, we end up with a much maintenance cost also. So I think that the quality design is very the essential thing. Even as recent days, I think the engineering temperament has gone.
So I think, sir, what you said is absolutely right. I think this is one of, it's all a machinery, right? Everything has to sort of fall in place, and this is one of the big points that yes, we need to also consider. But in the interest of time, last two questions: how do we save lives, sir and ma'am? How do we go about it? Yes.
So means in road safety, first of all, we need to understand that we are dealing with humans, and human are bound to make mistake. This is very important, and which we all need to understand. If we make a very good design, very good roads, safer street, even after that, people will make mistake. They will drink and drive. So enforcement has to be very strict. Just the technological level chalaning is one way, but cancelling the registration number of the vehicle, cancelling the driving license, on which the transport department is looking on this aspect, is some deterrent and very hard measure has to be there. And even after such enforcement, then even the accident will happen. Even after that, it will happen. And if that will happen, then there has to be the trauma center. There has to be, like in like we are exploring in the like NCRTC project, that based on the location of the crash points, where all places we can have the trauma center to tackle the road fatalities. So design, enforcement, trauma, all these things need to work together, because if one fails, other will protect, and that has to be the mantra for the road safety.
A lot has been said about road safety. So I will just move a little ahead and talk about safety in terms of disaster. Because the elephant in the room, the floods that we are sitting on right now, maybe it's not affected in this area, but we've been currently working with them in the last 4-5 days towards the north side. So, did our roads were they perfect for the floods? Absolutely not. Were they useful, the engineering wise? Absolutely not. Whose responsibility it is? Of course, on this side, more so, I would say, less on the other side. What we could do in future, 2-3 things that's on my mind. One is, and I totally agree with Pranjali, let's do away with beautification, aesthetics, streetscaping. Like, let's just do away with it. Because if our roads are not functional, if they are not able to drain water, which they are supposed to do in the first place, like without even asking, like this shouldn't even be a requirement, it should be a prerequisite for the road to be laid. So if my roads are not doing that job, did my streetscape, beautiful streets, withhold the flood? Absolutely not. The amount of money I spent on streetscaping and lost it in the floods is way higher. So basically, I put a lot of money in streetscaping and again lost it to the flood. So if you think on a simple opportunity cost, or you think on a simple design based, also just let me interject myself on that. So when consultants come on board with us, it is extremely consultancy, like extreme in the sense like plants have to be this side, there has to be a cycling stretch. So but what will happen to that cycling stretch beyond that? So we are talking about cyclists who are doing it as a hobby, like who have to go to the gym or on the road, or we're looking at cyclists who are cycling to work. And if they're cycling to work, if I'm not going to the nearest work site, or if I'm not going to the nearest metro station, that cyclist track for 1 kilometer is useless for me as government. I mean, in terms of money, in terms of utility, we talk about cycling tracks. We never talk about cycling tracks crossing the road. So if a person has to cycle to work and he has to cross the road, like in a vehicle I can do 2 kilometers U-turn and come back, but by a cyclist I don't expect him to do that. So why are our consultants not able to give me designs which have functionality and these mobility issues? And engineers, less said better, we are highly engineering that we forget about mobility. So either we all come up with, let's say, like a 15 point, 20 point, 30 point definite prerequisite for a road, which starts with functionality. Where will my water drain? Where will the water, where there'll be no flooding? How will the, if the silt comes, how will we take out? And then we move to mobility. If he moves on a cycle, he should not fall. So footpath tracks are often said, let's go to non-motorized tracks. Non-motorized tracks, is it possible to use a cyclist along with non-motorized? I think half the room would say yes, half the room would say no. So these designs can always be debated. But what cannot be debated, what cannot be done away with, is the basic engineering of a road, the basic functionality of the road, and basic, like, potholes should not be there. Who is going to give me that complete set of instructions, that have you checked this, have you checked this, have you checked this, and mobility also included? I'm not defining both in a watershed department. I'm just saying that in times of disaster, aesthetics will not help us. Greening also, now that I've just brought it up, are we greening only for looking beautiful? Like, for whom beautiful? Like NDMC area beautiful? Or is it really stopping my water from moving to this area or that area? Are people able to use that in times of a crisis? If there's a fire in a building and if they have to get out, what path would they use first? How would they use it in disaster? So these should be done with both consultants and engineers. I'm laying the responsibility on either sides, because this is a dialogue, right? So we can think about this, we can go forward, and when you are with us or when we are with you, let's talk in totality. Let's not define that this is mobility, this is disaster, this is engineering. That is not really helping, at least till now. Thank you very much.
Whatever all the speakers have said, in the end, it's going to come down to how we build those streets on ground. I hope you all had a really good session. I would like to thank all the panelists once again, and over to Tanushree. Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone. Let us extend our heartiest gratitude to all our panelists. I would request Team WRI India to kindly felicitate them. It takes a lot for them to take out precious time from their schedule and come and join us here. So please. To wait with us, we have two more special. May I now request the panelists to please take their seats and join us for the rest of the session. We have an interesting slot where we are going to felicitate young designers. So please do join us. Ladies and gentlemen, I would now like to call upon Azra Khan, who is the Program Manager, Integrated Transport from WRI India. She'll be sharing a few key insights from WRI India's latest publication, Public Bike Sharing in India, Lessons Learned from Implementation in 3 Cities, that we are going to proudly launch on this prestigious platform today. Please raise your hands for Azra. Thank you.
Hello everyone. I am just like to very briefly talk about the paper that we are just about to launch. It's a paper which talks about public bicycle sharing systems in Indian context. I'm sure a lot of you would be familiar with the concept of public bicycle sharing systems. So many Indian cities have already tried experimenting with these type of systems in the past. But where the concept was fairly new, a lot of 3 cities in India, Bhopal, Mysore and Pune, were the 3 cities that actually introduced some innovative models that were based on PPP, public-private partnership. This was something that hasn't been tried in Indian context before these cities. So the paper that we are launching today talks about the lessons learned from these 3 cities, and most importantly, the challenges that Indian cities are facing in expanding and sustaining these systems in the Indian context. So I think I'll just pause here and call the rest of the authors.
May I also request Madhav Pai, CEO WRI India, he is here with us. Pavan, if you could join us, Director Integrated Transport, Mobility and Hydrogen, WRI India. Dhaval, if you could join us. Ma'am, Shashanka ma'am and Hemalata ma'am and Colonel Singhal, if you all could join us on stage for launching the publication. And Sarika and Advait. If Shehzad sir could also join us on stage, sir. We also have the QR code on screen, so members from the audiences can also scan the QR code and get a link for the publication. We are going to felicitate the Mara Rohtak 2.0 winners. I'll just ask Ashima to call out to all the winners. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together. These are young, talented designers and architects who have really put in a lot of hard work.
I would like to request Ms. Dwani Trivedi and Mr. Shashank Verma to please come on stage. No. Shashank. Ms. Chandra and Simran.
I'll just take this moment to thank our chief guests, Ms. Shashanka and Mr. Shehzada, for joining us on the stage. And maybe you can just take a seat for a moment. I'll just summarize this session quickly. I think what we have learned over the last 90 minutes, right? Very interesting discussion going on. Some of the key points that I observed, I think, just picking up from ma'am what you said, I think it's a multidisciplinary approach that is needed when we are thinking about streets. I think that becomes very clear. We are talking about streets at the intersection of climate. We are talking at the intersection of, we need water experts, we need design consideration, we need engineering, we also need traffic engineering. I think that's very less talked in India when we are talking about how our corridors and junctions are designed. And of course, material science, because it also is important on what kind of materials are we using while doing our roads and streets. I think there was also very interesting learning that as climate crisis become more and more evident, which we have just been seeing, we need to address the challenge of not just safety and accessibility while we are talking about street, but also heat stress and water stress. I think all three together is what we need to look at climate resilient streets, what I would say, and how do we really move towards that when we are designing for pedestrians, for cyclists, for all users. Also, it was very heartening to see with all the youngsters saying that there is hope. We also heard about a lot of pilots and community engagement. So it's not as bad as we all keep imagining that there is no, it's so dark, but the experiences from Gurgaon, from Bangalore, from all these cities reinforce that there are examples to learn from each other. There is community engagement is extremely, extremely important. And at the same time, how do we now come together to really move to a scale? Because is doing 40 enough? But how can cities announce that they will do 1,000 kilometers of walkable footpaths and cycling tracks in a year? I think that's the kind of ambition that we should be talking about. So I thank the audience for the wonderful inputs and suggestions, and for all the panelists for a wonderful discussion. So thank you all. On that note, have a wonderful, and please do join us for the lunch and for the rest of the sessions. Thank you.